The year 1914, a year that would forever change the course of history. A hot summer lay over Europe, the sun shone brightly and the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and joy. People were enjoying the warmth, unaware of the storm that was brewing on the horizon. Few suspected the world was on the brink of catastrophe. Life went on as usual, with bustling markets, crowded cafes and children playing in the streets. The sense of normalcy was palpable, yet fragile. Within weeks, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, would plunge Europe into the abyss of World War I. The shots fired in Sarajevo echoed across the continent, setting off a chain reaction of alliances and enmities. This war, the Great War, would be unlike any before it. It was a conflict that would involve nations from across the globe, drawing in millions of soldiers and civilians alike. The scale and scope of the war were unprecedented. Millions of soldiers, mobilized by empires clashing for dominance, would soon find themselves bogged down in a horrific new kind of conflict. The romantic notions of war were quickly dispelled by the brutal reality of the trenches. Gone were the days of Napoleonic grandeur on the battlefield. The elegant uniforms and gallant charges were replaced by muddy trenches and barbed wire. In their place, the grim reality of trench warfare. Soldiers lived and fought in squalid conditions, facing constant danger from enemy fire, disease, and the elements. This essay examines some of the most significant battles of World War I, exploring the strategies, technologies, and human cost of this unprecedented conflict. The war saw the introduction of new weapons and tactics that would change the nature of warfare forever. From the Marne to Verdun, each battle brought its own horrors and heroics. The Battle of the Marne, for instance, was a turning point that halted the German advance and set the stage for years of trench warfare. From the Somme to Tannenberg, the scale of the carnage was unimaginable. The Battle of the Somme saw over 1 million casualties, a stark reminder of the war's devastating human cost. We will trace the arc of the war and its lasting impact on the 20th century. The Great War reshaped borders, toppled empires, and left a legacy of grief and remembrance that continues to this day. Its lessons are etched in the monuments and memorials that dot the landscapes of Europe, serving as a solemn reminder of the price of conflict. On June 28, 1914, a pivotal moment in history unfolded. Gavrilo Princip, a young Serbian nationalist, assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie in Sarajevo, Bosnia. This act of violence was not just a personal tragedy, but a spark that would ignite a global conflict. The assassination sent shockwaves through Europe, a continent already simmering with political tensions and alliances. This single act of terrorism ignited a chain reaction that would engulf the world in war. Austria-Hungary, seeking to assert its dominance and blaming Serbia for the assassination, issued an ultimatum with demands so severe that they were almost impossible to meet. The ultimatum was designed to provoke a conflict, and Serbia's response, though conciliatory, was deemed insufficient. Germany, bound by a strong alliance with Austria-Hungary, pledged unwavering support. Kaiser Wilhelm II assured Austria-Hungary that Germany would stand by its side, no matter the consequences. This alliance emboldened Austria-Hungary to take a hardline stance against Serbia. Russia, bound by Slavic ties and a treaty to Serbia, began mobilizing its troops in defense of its ally. Tsar Nicholas II saw the need to protect Serbia and counter the Austro-Hungarian aggression, setting the stage for a broader conflict. Germany, fearing the prospect of a two-front war, swiftly declared war on Russia. Anticipating that France, Russia's ally, would join the conflict, Germany also declared war on France. The German military strategy was to quickly defeat France before turning its full might against Russia. In a bold and aggressive move, Germany invaded neutral Belgium to outflank French defences. This violation of Belgian neutrality outraged Britain, which had pledged to defend Belgium. Consequently, Britain declared war on Germany, further escalating the conflict. Within weeks, the major powers of Europe were drawn into a full-scale war. Soldiers from across the continent were mobilized, and the first battles of what would become known as World War I began to unfold. What started as a regional conflict quickly escalated into a global war. Nations from around the world were drawn into the fray, and the battlefields of Europe became the stage for a conflict that would reshape the world order. A global conflict had begun, marking the start of one of the deadliest wars in human history. The initial German offensive in the west, based on the Schlieffen Plan, aimed for a swift knockout blow against France. German armies swept through Belgium, aiming to encircle Paris. However, they were met with fierce resistance from French and British forces. The First Battle of the Marne, which took place from September 5th to 12th, 1914, proved a pivotal moment. The French army, reinforced by Parisian taxis rushing troops to the front, halted the German advance. The Schlieffen Plan was in ruins. The Western Front settled into a deadly stalemate. Unable to achieve a decisive breakthrough, both sides dug in along the Western Front. From the English Channel to the Swiss border, a vast network of trenches, fortified with barbed wire and machine gun nests, emerged. Life in the trenches was a nightmare. Soldiers endured constant shelling, sniper fire, and the ever-present threat of enemy attack. Disease, rats, and the psychological strain of trench warfare took a heavy toll. Section 5. Bloodbath of attrition, the Battle of Verdun. In 1916, German Chief of Staff Erich von Falkenhayn launched a massive offensive at Verdun, aiming to bleed France white. The battle, lasting from February to December 1916, became a symbol of the war's brutality. Both sides suffered horrendous casualties in the relentless fighting. Verdun became a battle of attrition, with each side pouring in men and resources in a desperate struggle for a few yards of ground. Although France ultimately held Verdun, the human cost was staggering. Section 6, the Eastern Front, mobility and collapse. While the Western Front was characterized by static trench warfare, the Eastern Front was marked by greater mobility and even more devastating consequences for the civilian populations caught in the crossfire. The vast expanses of Eastern Europe allowed for sweeping maneuvers and rapid advances, but this also meant that entire towns and villages were often caught in the path of advancing armies. Civilians faced not only the horrors of battle, but also the destruction of their homes and livelihoods, leading to massive displacements and refugee crises. The Battle of Tannenberg in August 1914, a decisive German victory over Russian forces, exemplified the strategic challenges and shifting alliances of the Eastern Front. This battle showcased the tactical brilliance of the German commanders and the severe logistical and communication issues faced by the Russian army. The defeat at Tannenberg was a significant blow to Russian morale and highlighted the weaknesses in their military strategy and infrastructure. Russia, lacking the industrial capacity of its opponents, suffered immense casualties. The Russian war effort was hampered by outdated equipment, poor supply lines, and a lack of coordination among its forces. The human cost was staggering, with millions of soldiers and civilians losing their lives. The strain on Russian society was immense, leading to widespread discontent and unrest. The Eastern Front would ultimately see the collapse of the Russian Empire and the rise of the Bolsheviks. The immense pressures of the war exacerbated existing social and political tensions within Russia, culminating in the Russian Revolution of 1917. The fall of the Tsarist regime and the subsequent rise of the Bolsheviks marked a dramatic shift in Russian history, leading to the establishment of the Soviet Union and a new era of geopolitical dynamics in the region. Section 7. Technological warfare, tanks and poison gas. World War I witnessed the introduction of new technologies that would forever change the face of warfare. The machine gun, already employed with deadly effect in earlier conflicts, reached new levels of lethality. The tank, first deployed by the British in 1916, offered a potential solution to the stalemate of trench warfare. Poison gas, introduced by the Germans, added a horrific new dimension to the conflict, inflicting agonizing deaths and terrorizing soldiers. Section 8. The legacy of World War I. World War I ended on November 11, 1918, with the signing of the armistice. The war to end all wars had failed to achieve that lofty goal. Instead, it left a legacy of shattered empires, profound social upheaval, and deep-seated resentment. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to ensure lasting peace, instead imposed harsh penalties on Germany, sowing the seeds of future conflict. The war's unprecedented casualties, estimated at over 40 million, left a generation scarred. Section 9. Conclusion. A world forever changed. World War I was a watershed moment in human history. It marked the end of an era, shattering the old order and ushering in a new world shaped by the forces of nationalism, technological innovation, and the devastating consequences of total war. The lessons of the Great War, though often ignored, continue to resonate in the 21st century, reminding us of the human cost of conflict and the urgent need for international cooperation and diplomacy.